So that's good to look at. You can look at selection recruitment from relatively early ages throughout the talent pipeline. What about retention? Can we use it to kind of keep people, to keep the brightest and the best in companies?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is again another huge advantage of using assessment because the use cases you can apply it to are so broad. So let's talk about ambiguity acceptance, how you cope with a lack of clarity, perhaps a slightly chaotic environment, something that becomes more and more common in businesses today because the environment we operate in is changing so much. If you have individuals that are extremely talented, they're conscientious, they're diligent, they're hard workers, they're competitive, they enjoy the reward structure that you have in your business, they are curious, they like new and novel things in their environment, but they absolutely cannot tolerate a lack of clarity, you could lose them even though they're very talented. Now, if you don't know that as a business or as a manager, you might not realise why that person is becoming disengaged in your organisation. If you do know that information, you can change what you do practically as an organisation. Perhaps you give that individual greater clarity than what you think is enough. So if you are fine with a bit of chaos, you may not provide other people with the absolute depth and detail, step-by-step instructions and breakdown of a particular project or decision that they may need. But if you know that about somebody, you can start giving them a bit more detail, and that can help you to take away that factor that could be disengaging them. It could be something like competitiveness. Somebody could be excessively high. They are extremely ambitious, and they may feel as though they want to win, and for them to win, you have to lose. You could end up alienating people around you. And what you can find is that individual, while they're very successful, the cost of their success is quite high. Mm-hmm. So in that instance, it's not so much that person that could be the flight risk, it's the people around them in the team. We've had examples in the past where we've consulted with businesses who had an extremely successful salesperson, but they were problematic because although they would be quite high on the leaderboard, they were rude when they spoke to the support teams, they'd be quite blunt sometimes with their clients. So the same trait that was helping them be a very successful salesperson had a cost attached to it. And actually we were looking at whether there was a potential link to retention issues in some of the support functions that struggled to deal with the extreme personality characteristics of that salesperson. So it's not just at an individual level, you can actually see how the personality traits of one person could be having an impact on a wider dynamic in an organisation or group.
Yeah, and it's a good point to reinforce about retention, because one of the things some companies forget sometimes is that your most talented, high performer, most valuable person who's organised, doing very well in their job, is also the most capable of finding another better job somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So you want to make sure you don't forget about them and forget about the value that they're bringing to the company, the importance of them staying in that role versus the potential loss of them leaving for somewhere else, especially someone who could be a competitor in a different role or in a different organization. So it's really important to make sure you keep the good people once you've spotted, developed, managed them well.
And helping them to stay in that kind of ideal range of what is good. So you can find that very successful people, you think about the most successful business people, politicians, celebrities, anyone that is in a position that you would consider to be successful, they're typically not who you would describe as average. You wouldn't say that they are as motivated as most, as competitive as most. They tend to be quite extreme in some way, and those very same extreme characteristics, as you elaborate in the book, can be the very same traits that can trip you up and derail you. And from a practical point of view, it's a huge area both for interviewing, for ongoing development, retention, even succession planning, is identifying when those extreme traits that help you be very successful go a little bit too far and trip you up. It's the successful manager who has got there because they're detail-oriented, structured and motivated, trips them up by becoming a perfectionist and holding back projects. It's the extremely curious, open to ideas individual that's really creative, wants to be really innovative, but never delivers anything because they're always focusing on something new. And that's useful to explore at interview stage before someone has joined your business. It's interesting development for people that you already have, but especially at succession level, you could be putting somebody into an extremely significant position where they have huge responsibility in your business. You want to get an idea of the risk that individual may have to trip themselves up due to their personality and the cascading impact that could have on the rest of the business.
Yeah, and that's a good point actually to reinforce stuff we've talked about in other videos about things can be going really well and people could have these extreme but optimal traits in the business. Well, the economy's good, the business is running well, everything's going great guns, everything's running along smoothly, but all of a sudden something really bad or severe or stressful could happen either in the company, in the economy, in someone's personal life, and those things that were beneficial and useful, like perfectionism, suddenly become obsessive and excessive. So they can be derailing factors. So it's something you have to look for and watch out for in
Yes.
derailing factors.
And the wider environment is something that we consider a lot with the use of assessment. So I think another example I could provide to you is a very large manufacturer that actually uses personality assessment and uses HPTI to look at the personality traits of managers to determine who may be most effective in different scenarios. So if you have a very high performing plant, certain characteristics are going to help people to be successful and kind of really enhance and maintain that level of motivation and help people be more successful. But that manager may be less advantageous putting them into a very problematic plant where there's high turnover, lots of tough conversations have to be had, performance is quite low on average, but they could be successful elsewhere. So they use the insights to determine where to deploy and second certain managers, whether they're going to say it's working well, help it to do better and maintain, or perhaps send somebody in to shake things up and perhaps challenge something that could be kind of underperforming.
Yeah, exactly. And so the more information you get, the better decisions you can make.